Volvemos y arrancamos este Congreso Nacional de Hidrógeno Verde con la Plenaria 1, una mesa de alto nivel. Enseguida lo van a entender porque les cuento. Modera la mesa Gonzalo Pardo, que les digo, son más de 2 décadas de experiencia en generación de energía. Tiene un extenso currículum. Por ser el primero me van a permitir que me quede con un detalle personal. Es corredor de largas distancias, será porque tiene 3 hijos, habrá tenido que salir corriendo igual de alguna conversación. De su puesto no ha salido corriendo, no lo ha abandonado. Es y sigue siendo CEO y director comercial de track&services, unidad de negocios de Técnicas Reunidas. Muchas gracias. Junto a él se van a sentar Jorge Paradela, que lo conocen, lo tenemos pluriempleado en este congreso, lo han escuchado hablar en la apertura inaugural. Y ahora va a tomar la palabra también consejero de Industria, una trayectoria profesional de alto nivel vinculada al sector cervecero y al deportivo. No digo equipos para no herir sensibilidades. Un buen tándem. Ahora centra sus miras en el desarrollo de la industria en Andalucía y en las posibilidades que se abren a través de las energías renovables. Junto a él se sentará Julio Muñoz, jefe de Departamento de Servicios a Terceros de Red Eléctrica de España, es ingeniero industrial, actualmente el responsable de coordinar el proceso de conexión de infraestructuras y la gestión de servicios. Además es autor de varias publicaciones, miembro de CIGRE y colaborador en Enerclub. Y por último, Manuel Kuehn, vicepresidente de Sistemas de Energía Sostenible en Siemens Energy, implementó la primera planta de hidrógeno verde en Dubái, se formó en Alemania y en Brasil y ha llevado sus conocimientos a Oriente Medio, a África. En fin, si quisiera podría retirarse como reportero de Españoles por el Mundo también, porque conoce bien el planeta, el mundo y su casa. Bienvenidos, comienza la plenaria número 1. Gracias.
Bueno, Rocío, muchísimas gracias por la introducción. Haremos este primer panel en inglés. Bueno, Jorge ya introdujo algo el lenguaje para la participación internacional. So, thank you everybody for joining this first panel of the second National Congress here in Huelva. We have today fantastic weather, good sun shining up there. Last year it was colder, we had rain. So we already have water, we have sun, with a little bit of wind. We think we have all the ingredients needed for the takeoff of this green hydrogen industry, and in particular in this location. What are the key critical factors that we need still to overcome or are in the way to be overcome for the final takeoff of this industry? That's the topic of the panel. So we have with us, Julio has introduced participants of 3 of the key stakeholders of areas that are very relevant for the takeoff of the industry. One of them is the institutional support, and we have Jorge here from the regional government that will speak us about what they are doing on this space. We have Julio that will explain us what the restrictions are and what the challenges are in the grid space. And we have Manuel that will speak about a broader vision about industry, the key technology here in electrolyzers, and a global vision of where Spain stands in a world vision from his side. So opening fire with Jorge. Jorge, thanks a lot for joining the panel. It's an honor to have you on this one. So basically, this is a nascent industry. It requires support beyond having all the ingredients that we mentioned earlier. So what's the administration, the local administration, doing in supporting the takeoff of the green energy industry here?
Thank you. First of all, it's a pleasure for us to participate in this panel discussion. I also want to thank Siemens for their sponsorship of this conversation. And I have to say, it's important to have support at every level. That's what we think. Of course, I will explain what we're trying to do from a regional government perspective. But also, for example, what's been announced recently in Brussels about this new package of legislation, which is going to drive different mandates, is also quite interesting, quite remarkable. We think this competitiveness compass, which is not the easiest name, as it happens normally with with things from Brussels, with three strategic imperatives, is grabbing a lot of attention. So Europe seems to be moving ahead. It has identified three key mandates which have to do with closing the innovation gap. Secondly, with driving decarbonization, but hand in hand with competitiveness. And last but not least, trying to speed up things related to security and strategic autonomy. No? So those are things which are all paramount for the European project at this point in time. One of the key elements has to do specifically with decarbonization. And what they have announced is that on February 26, which is only like three weeks away, there will be a plan which is going to be called the Affordable Energy Action Plan. The Affordable Energy Action Plan. We're going to pay a lot of attention to that because it seems it will leverage greater market integration. It will expand the use of guarantees and risk mitigation instruments to facilitate PPAs. It will incentivize demand in the industrial environment, in the industrial field, and also promote better design tariffs. We think all those elements are crucial in order to stimulate demand, in order to get things moving. So, as I said, a lot of attention. I have somebody in Brussels from my team who's doing a fantastic job trying to keep up with everything coming from Brussels. We think expectations are high, and what we're trying to do from Andalucía is we have realized that Andalucía really has every ingredient to become one of the key epicenters in Europe and probably in the world for the green hydrogen production. Because as it has been said already a number of times, the combination of natural resources, strategic location, port infrastructure, but also talents and know-how make it a really promising value proposition. Also, in combination with agile permitting. This is one of the key things we're trying to move ahead with. So agility, simplification, planning, those are things that are part of our roadmap. And I have to say, a key element is also the fact that 40% of the current demand for conventional hydrogen in Spain is located in Andalucía. So that gives some of the big projects a good starting point, a baseline for their business case. And I also want to say, as a key ingredient in this initial response, that last year we installed 2.7 gigawatts of new installed capacity. And that's pretty remarkable. That's 66% more than the previous year, in which we had already achieved a previous record. No? We have beaten a previous record. No? So Andalucía has the energy and is doing a big effort in permitting to make sure that hydrogen projects have timely energy in place. We have an energy roadmap, a hydrogen roadmap that accounts for 1/3 of Spain's electrolyzer, Spain's objectives in this field. And Huelva has a number of projects which is really outstanding, and some of them have received this tag of IPCI. So I don't want to make it any longer, but basically, I mean, if you combine simplification, the commitment of regional governments to really do things on time, in full, and then everything that is coming out of Europe in this new European Commission, which seems to be determined to move the needle in terms of competitiveness, we think we are in a nice spot.
Thank you, Jorge. I think it's very interesting that, I mean, we see this as a change in the industry. It's not only the energy industry, we need to make low carbon, low price energy in order that the industry comes and locate here. And I think later with Manuel's vision on a global vision, with a global perspective, we can have some dialogue there about how we see ourselves compared to the rest of the world on that particular topic. Julio, I think that one of the critical factors that today is becoming probably a roadblock, or the key roadblock for some of the projects that are about to start, those that are ready to take off, that have all the ingredients, except probably the grid connection. So I would like if you can say some words about the new normal that from Redeia you are seeing over the last years on a lot of new players trying to connect to the high voltage grid, how you are getting to those auctions on the nodes under which there's more demand than offer, and how the planning of new infrastructure will be set up for the future. Because now we are talking about connecting to the existing grid, we need also to plan the newer grid for the forthcoming projects.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. I would like to thank you, to thank the organizers of this event for inviting Red Eléctrica to participate in this Congress. I would like to highlight some key issues that influence the connection of infrastructure to the transmission grid, based on our experience of connecting more than 1,000 renewable generation plants in the last years. Let me share four key factors that influence this connection. The power available at the connection point in the transmission system, it's obvious, is limited, and is related to both the generation connected in every moment and the size and massing of the own system. The expansion of the transmission grid to connect new infrastructure as electrolyzers, for example, requires that the assets to be built have to be included in the National Energy Plan prior its approval. This is a very important thing. This requires that the studies have been carried out previously, and therefore it is a critical task to choose the optimal moment to include the needs of assets to be built in the energy planning, which required a strict coordination between the deadlines of the project and the period of the definition of the National Energy Plan. Regarding the processing of files, the evolution of the grid, I would like to share with you that the expansion of the transmission grid needs an agile processing of files in the administration, which will allow the optimal rhythm in the evolution of the grid. Our recommendation as a Redeia group is to give priority to the permitting of this project that connect the transmission grid with the consumption plants through strategical priority programs aimed by the central and regional administrations. In this section is crucial the coordination between all the actors of this movie: consumers, stakeholders, promoters, distributors, and the TSO. Okay. Regarding the supply of equipment of high voltage devices, I would like to share that in the last years we are experiencing a crisis in the supply chain, especially in specific high voltage devices as gas insulated substations and power transformers. High demand worldwide will tend to cause bottlenecks that will need to be considered when in defining the timeline of the project and in the expansion of the transmission grid. Okay. This needs a strict coordination. And finally, maybe the most popular topic, the access and connection rights to the transmission grid. The access and connection rights are granted through the application of a specific regulatory specific regulation that introduce the possibility that the power and the connection point are subject to a tender process depending on the number of applications received and the power required. It is crucial to consider in the project the possible requirements of this tenders process to try that the project are the choose project to connect to
Julio,
the grid.
there, on regards to the auction on these high demand connection points, which I think it's what everybody's looking out. How will that happen? I think there's around 30 connection points with more demand than offer, and obviously there will be some auctions running on those key points. I understand that Redeia is collecting the data, but the auction itself is something that is in the hands of the MITECO, of the Ministry of Energy Transition, and that's the way on which it will be ensured that those projects that are highly ranked in subsidies and in grants, in having possibilities to fly, are the ones that will get the connection. Because otherwise, we might face the problem that we have right projects with a grid connection, but without funds or without fundamentals to fly over. That's a correct assessment?
Yeah, this is not easy this is a question not easy to solve. Redeia is responsible for collecting, for receiving the application, and to decide if the conditions to suspend the process are fulfilled or not. If the power demanded or the power available in each connection point is not enough to fulfill the demand received by applications, declare the process suspended and communicate to the ministry the situation. And the ministry is responsible for to solve the process.
Okay, let's change gears a little bit with Manuel. Manuel, talking a little bit more on the production side of the industry, no? One of the challenges of many of the developers, promoters, EPC contractors, and customers has been the maturity of the technology, no? And obviously Siemens is in the edge of that technology. Can you let us know your vision and how mature the technology is today compared to where it was a year ago and some years back, and how you see the future on that?
Yeah, thanks Gonzalo for the introduction, and good morning. Coming here once a year has the advantage. It's easy to keep track on what was not available last year when we were on stage and what is available this year. And I just want to give you 3 concrete examples what from our side on the technology de-risking front has changed. So 3 things that were not fully available last year at the time, and today I would say they are available. And I can link it all to the question how to de-risk the technology in the project and make the project bankable. So first of all, you want to make sure that the equipment can be delivered. Then you want to make sure that the equipment does as advertised, performs, and then you want to run it over a couple of years. And I have 3 examples. So we have meanwhile managed to get a total order backlog of 1 gigawatt in Siemens Energy that is signed equipment supply contracts, not feeds. And that means for us, it creates security in our supply chain, not only how we load our own factory, but also it provides security for our sub-suppliers so that they can exchange expected volumes with planned volumes. And that de-risks the supply chain quite a bit. This wasn't available a year ago, and I believe that expectations on specifically the green hydrogen space were higher in terms of how fast projects come and also how large they are. But it's good enough, I think, because we create a certain stability which allows the supply chain to stabilize and plan. So that's, for me, it's an advancement which is quite substantial with 1 gigawatt. The second thing is we have now finally plants under operation with the current technology. That was a year ago under construction. So we have a 20 megawatt plant running with Air Liquide in Oberhausen since 1 year already. It started pretty much after the conference last year. And we will very soon commission 2 times more 50 megawatts. So we are getting now assets into operation, which means it provides us operational data that allow us to replace expectations with hard facts. And since we normally try to calculate conservatively, it means we can lower some risk margins in the way how we advertise the technology and also what we guarantee to the customer. We were not able to do this a year ago. Now we are, and we are able to calculate much tighter, which ultimately improves the business cases. And as a third aspect, that's about the security for the investor, how to run the plant over time. The two largest contracts we signed in the last 12 months, we also signed immediately with a 10-year service contract, which means we can help our customers to project the OPEX over a longer period of time and make sure that the equipment is available. So you can run your plant. And that makes, for the capital side, a big difference. So, and all this happened in the last 12 months. It was expected, but it wasn't there today. We can confidently say we have done our homework and progressed quite a bit on the de-risking of the technology. Now, building back the bridge a little bit to Julio and Jorge, things that are not yet fully sorted out and where we are learning, and that is most likely exactly the triangle that's sitting here. Actually, it's all four of us, including the EPCs, that's sitting here on stage, which is the question how we interact with the grid, how we allocate funding, how we can make sure that the projects that get grid connection are also the ones that receive funding, because having one of the two doesn't really help. That the projects get the right and that they get good data from the OEMs. And also, that's my last point, and it's, I think, an open topic, that we can also gradually reduce the total installed cost. A lot of disappointment that I see still in the market is once we are in feed stage, the total cost estimates are sometimes prohibitive. And it's a result of every player in the supply chain not yet being 100% sure how we're going to do it, because we haven't done it before. As now larger plants go into operation and more and more companies are gaining experience with what it means to build a 100 megawatt electrolyzer plant, we also need to work on reducing the overall capex, not only on the electrolyzer equipment, but also on all the auxiliaries, the balance of plant, up to the grid connections. Yeah? And I'm fully with you. We actually do have serious bottlenecks on the equipment side, on the grid, more so than we actually have it on the electrolyzer.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely to the point, no? And it connects, let's say, all the parties, as you said today on the stage, no? In order to have a low-cost product, it's dialogue. It's because we need dialogue as EPC contractors with the supply chain in order that we understand how to tackle risks. But the producers need to talk with Red Eléctrica in order that they have a right design future infrastructure, and it's the administration, the regional administration and national administration that will require to have all the additional infrastructure in order that we have that end product that is the molecule that is competitive with the let's say, an outside market with our competitors. No? So maybe, Jorge, how you see, and you were starting the dialogue with that European vision, no? And I think it would be good and worth to have a dialogue between you and Manuel that has a global vision, and he has a menace in his product with the Chinese production of electrolyzers. How you see those competitors out there, out of Europe, no?
So what we see is that, first of all, infrastructure is critical here, no? So we already discussed transmission infrastructure. And as I said in my opening speech this morning, so Andalucía has done a big effort, no? Because we have installed 2.7 gigawatts. That requires a lot of work from an administrative point of view. That's really clear. But also in terms of education, pedagogy, explaining what renewable is all about, no? And the benefits for society. No? So what we expect now, and it's no surprise for Julio, is that Andalucía is well reflected in the new planning. Talking about international infrastructure and related specifically to hydrogen, what we've done is we are collaborating with Enagas, who's the single operator in Spain, in order to make sure that we don't only have the Western corridor, the Ruta de la Plata corridor, but also that a branch from Huelva to Algeciras is built and justified by demand in Campo de Gibraltar, in the Algeciras area. So we agreed we would set up a process of calls for interest to make sure that that demand arose, and that was the case. So our expectation now is that, as Arturo Gonzalo announced last week in Madrid and commented today, that is going to be now, they will apply to the IPCI tag to make sure that this branch is also part of the international grid in Europe. One more thing that we did in collaboration with Enagas, Enagas opened a call for interest for the famous H2 Med, for the international corridor. So we encourage Andalusian companies to participate in that call for interest. The information is not official yet, but I know that a very high percentage of the combined production that Andalusia, that Spain foresees for that corridor is coming from Andalusia, roughly in the same region that our roadmap already points out, which is 1/3 of Spain's electrolyzer capacity will be located in Andalusia. So it seems that call for interest also reflected a similar number, and there is a willingness, therefore, to export towards Northern Europe. Last but not least, we established one of the first intra-European corridors, which is this corridor between the ports of Andalusia, mainly Algeciras and Huelva, but not only them, with Rotterdam, which is Europe's largest port. So that corridor is also going to be a very nice ingredient for Andalusia to be able to not only produce locally and transform, decarbonize the local industry, but also be able to export to the rest of Europe. So those are ingredients that we see hand in hand with the companies and with the key operators. And as I said, we try also to keep track on developments related to incentivizing demand and stimulating a positive regulatory framework, as I said before, everything that is coming out of Europe as we speak.
So it looks like we have a good plan, no? But Manuel, how you see, let's say, our plans when you travel outside to Asia or Middle East or North America with those blue molecules in North America? Now we see with the new political environment how that evolves, but we have competitors out there. So how you see Europe, and in particular our initiative here in Spain with these big plans compared to what they are doing out there?
A lot of the market we see today is driven by subsidies. And that also tells you where the project is located. It's not necessarily the most rational location of the asset today. It's where a political decision was made that funds get allocated. And for the time being, that is okay. Because as the industry, we have a different problem to solve, which I described earlier. We need to de-risk technology. It doesn't matter where I do that. But if you think a little bit more midterm, I'm not even saying long-term, midterm already, we will have to question whether these funds are allocated to the right places. And the funds need to go where the fundamentals support a business case that would eventually work even without additional subsidies. And the fundamentals in Europe are we have to go where the power is available and cheap and has a low carbon footprint. And that is tendency either very much north or very much south, for example here. That's how it's going to be, no matter what we do, because the fundamental question is, where's my power available, cheap and green? That's what we need. And that will also, somewhen soon, shape the landscape of assets and application in Europe. And that is not a European piece. Worldwide, we live in, let's say, interesting times, and we see also narratives changing quite a bit, particularly in the last 6 months, where we seem to have agreed to not worry about climate change for a moment and talk about other things. But also there, the fundamental problem is not going away just because we decide not to talk about it for a few months, because we believe we have different problems. We will have to address the aspect of decarbonization. It will happen, whether we do this by calling hydrogen green or blue or low carbon fuel. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, and there will be opportunity for all kinds of technologies. So all the calls for a technology agnostic view on how we decarbonize industries, from my point of view, are justified. Because we have to make it work economically in the first place. If we want to make it work bulk, it has to work economically. That might also mean that we will abandon a little bit the idea of producing hydrogen somewhere and then always ship hydrogen, which we don't do anyways, but a low carbon molecule around. Yeah? Mm-hmm. It is more efficient to bring the industry to where the power is cheap.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And we will see this also happening in the next 5 to 10 years, where now the first learnings come in and we will rethink value chains and maybe allocate some activities closer to where the power is, and maybe ship more intermediate goods, pellets, instead of hydrogen to a steel plant. Yeah? Or we ship maybe the urea instead of ammonia. We will find a lot of interesting things that we do. Maybe we will ship intermediaries more than we ship molecules. We will also ship molecules, but we will also ship intermediaries. So I think we haven't seen yet the final distribution of the assets towards the power sources. And we will probably need a few more years to get this really sorted out. What is the best way how to do it?
Okay, thank you. Very, very interesting, let's say, global vision. I think we have very short time, so one short comment, Julio, about the topic, because what Manuel was just saying is the project will be where low carbon, low price electricity is. There's somebody else looking for that, which is data centers. And I think it's a challenge that also this industry will have when we need to look and go for and grab the same electrons as that industry is looking. And in particular in Spain, we'll see that happening. So Julio, you seeing, let's say, big demand coming on this space that will be, let's say, having an effect on the programming of the grid in the future or in the auctions coming on this industry?
We are about to embark on the second stage of the ecological transition within the decarbonization process. The electrification of the consumer, the demand is remarkable. It's remarkable. Our company has been working a lot to guarantee the connection, to ensure the connection of the different consumer plants. In a couple of years, we will connect the first 2 electrolyzers to the system, one in the 220 kV system and the other in 400 kV. And I am very sure that national policies will consider the needs of the different sectors between these of the electrolyzers, and our company is ready, has the means and resources to develop as soon as possible the grid to give the appropriate answer to these challenges.
Okay. So I think we have only 5 minutes left. Maybe a round of final vision, Manuel, starting from you and this way, about what are the key challenges, how we should overcome them. 2 minutes for each of you. Thank you.
So I described technology de-risking as progressing. The way how we distribute value chains will maybe change. The key question also for a region like here is how competitive are we maybe in 3 or 4 or 5 years when we need to, for example, expand the grid in order to allow industries to come. Whether this is a hydrogen plant or a data center, but at the end, if I have a power-intensive industry, our ability to fast and effectively reallocate and allocate, for example, transmission systems into the industries, build it up, approve it, that will be a big competitive advantage or disadvantage, independent of the question how cheap my power is. Because if the sun shines, it's good. There are a lot of places in the southern hemisphere where the renewables are better than in Spain, but the infrastructure surrounding is not better than in Spain. Mm-hmm. And the question whether I can enable what I already have in terms of natural resources and the surrounding infrastructure, that's going to be the key question about the future competitive of also locations like Andalucía.
Julio, maybe final remarks and takeaways.
My final conclusion is that this scenario demands the coordination of the actor. It's essential to obtain license to build facilities to connect the consumption plants to the grid. This is a real exercise of coordination between all actors. Thank you very much.
Jorge.
I think, so building on Manuel's point, no, we really think Andalucía should be competitive in this field. No? That's what we all foresee, and I think there's agreement in this room that should be the case. No? Estimates are between 75 and 90% of the cost of producing green hydrogen is energy. And Andalucía should definitely have an advantage there. No? Just to give you an idea, the same megawatt of solar installed in Andalucía gives twice as much energy, twice as much power installed as the same one installed in Germany. No? So that's the kind of relationship we're talking about. No? So that's why, for example, PPAs signed in Spain right now, the estimate are between 25 and 40% lower than average Europe. No? So we should be competitive. No? That's pretty clear. What we think is missing right now is a couple of things have already been mentioned. No? So we need to make sure that the infrastructure is there. We need to make sure that we collaborate. So I forgot to mention before that, for example, we have established a very good relationship with some landers in Germany. Mm-hmm. For example, we visited Baden-Württemberg 2 weeks ago with our presidents. There are 25 companies from Baden-Württemberg in this conference in Huelva today, and they're really interested in importing hydrogen from places like Andalucía or maybe Portugal, overall Spain. But we also would like to attract industry, as Manuel mentioned before. And there are a couple of examples already up and running in Andalucía, like, for example, the production of green copper in Córdoba, very close to Huelva. No? So that's the direction we should be aiming at. For us, the key point at this point in time, when we look at the different projects, the different business cases, is a commercial demand. Is the offtake. Where is the demand? Mm-hmm. As I said before, some of the key projects in Andalucía have as a baseline the substitution of gray hydrogen, conventional hydrogen for green, but many other projects are still a little bit up in the air because they don't have a clear demand. And that is something that should be facilitated. Of course, we celebrate that the Spanish government has decided to add 400 million of their own next generation budget to the common effort of this second auction from the Green Hydrogen European Bank. But we think efforts in this area are going to be probably the most fundamental thing moving forward, so that the different projects have, I don't know, the stability, the security to really embrace the necessary investments. That's the way we look at it a little.
Fantastic. So thank the three of you for your participation in the panel. I think we are going to leave it here. Key conclusions. We have the right ingredients. We have the full alignment, which is rare in these times of European, national, regional, local institutions. We have the industry, so it's the moment to take off, as I think some of the introductory words this morning were talking about. So let's go for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.